I say that because it's supposed to snow tomorrow night.
That's hilarious. Yeah, it'll be 68, 66 right now.
Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna be
ridiculous.
in the 60s for like a solid week, which is not normal. For us, like February is the cold month typically. Like this should be 38 as the high. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's real weird. So they
Read.
actually on the are we live?
We're live.
Oh, nice.
We're live. But we're talking
What's
about
up,
the weather.
everybody? No, yeah.
Hello.
Hello. So no, actually here I was watching the news while I was taking a run this morning, and they had a pollen index in February. I was like, they got something wrong here. Someone messed up.
Look at the size of the snows. You know how much pollen gets up in there? It's not good. I am not good at allergies. That is those months for me. I hibernate.
It's great.
I'm telling you. Okay. Welcome to VINCUE Accelerate with Mr. Kyle Mountsier. I'm so excited that you're here, man.
Yeah, glad to be here. It's always fun to have a good conversation with people that are like-hearted and minded in our industry. So yeah.
Well, thank you. So we're what? Not just under 4 weeks away from going to Las Vegas.
I know, right? Actually, we popped up my business partner and I, Paul, last week. We got off a call, and it was like, oh yeah, we're NADA is coming soon. And they were like, yeah, less than 4 weeks, and we're like, whoa, we got to get ready for that thing.
Growing up in the car business, I mean, you know this, right? It's like before we were creating solutions for car dealers and we were selling cars. I remember this time of year calling on vendors and trying to get through to my PM or get through to somebody. They're like, oh, no, I'm sorry. They can't talk right now. They're at NADA. And I'm like, NA what? And they're like, NADA. I'm like, getting values? Like, what are they doing? Like, there's a website for that.
I remember that back like when you first start, like when you first get into the middle management and you're like, wait a second, that's not just in VAuto, like for values or whatever. And I'm sorry, exactly. VAuto on a VINCUE call. Apologize. You guys didn't exist.
No, it's okay.
Then, by the way,
we didn't. No. We're in a good spot now, so we're very excited.
Yeah.
Okay. So, question for you: you are like a super busy guy, and we've been kind of after you for a long time because we want to be the places that you are, and you're starting to really disrupt in the industry. So. I just kind of first want to start is what have you been up to?
Yeah, well, and first of all, I hate the disrupt thing. I get it, but like I really like my pure desire is to challenge the industry, right? In just whatever way I can. Doesn't really matter where it's at. And a lot of people know that I kind of come from a marketing background, so I have a real passion for marketers and how marketing should be done. But then I come from a technology, effort, and so they're pushing back on that. And then communication and the way that we do content creation. I'm really excited about challenging our industry in that way. So yeah, I mean. Between Contagious, we've got a SODU now, which is a really big, just kind of place for people to land and understand what's going on in the industry and our desire to just kind of wrap our arms around the whole industry and say, hey, yeah, there's more people than just like executives that need to know what's going on in automotive or culture or anything like that. So been doing that. And I interestingly enough, have not traveled in February. So that's kind of like a new thing for me in this whole, not on the dealer side. So I've kind of been relaxed being at home. But really excited for NADA. We're telling everyone this because I'm just excited. We got press passes to NADA. So watch out.
Whoa.
Watch out.
Whoa. Yeah. Crazy. And you're not, I mean, at least from what I've seen, you're not used to being on this side of the microphone, right? Normally you're like interviewing people, right? Yes. So this is like my turn, which I think
I've been on a couple. I know I'm going to turn the question.
Yeah. It's like the first time you sit in the passenger seat of your car.
Yes,
you're
exactly.
Like, this looks different from over here.
Weird. Right. Yeah. No. So yeah, I've been on a couple, I think, podcasts before, but I love interviewing because like the reason I started Contagious podcast back in the day was just, I wanted to have more conversations with more people. Right. Because that's what my hope is. Like the reason why I'm hanging out with you right now is I know there's, however many 5, 10, 20, 100 people watching this, but my thought is, man, there might be some value that you and I get out of just having a conversation today. And maybe it challenges us to think in a new way or collaborate on something or whatever it is. So yeah. Cool.
Well, let's do it. So I want to start in a place where for me, I connected with you. And I remember you were still working for the car dealership. And actually, I got on a demo to share some of our kind of innovation with you. And then Zach Klemensky, my cousin who works here, goes, okay, you're going to really like this guy. So you gotta connect with him. I go, okay. I'm like, how do you know? He's like, oh, I've worked with Tom before. I go, okay, we'll see. So where we connected first was around branding. And then you said something to me that I have now, it's just like, I put it into my mental journal and I use it and I talk about it. I've talked about it on like 3 different occasions when you say the way you change culture, the way you change perception is with culture. The way you change perception is with people first. And I will tell you that I repeat that and I always put Mountsier at the end. And I think that is like the seed that grows into all the other things that happens, right? And to me, it's like, this is, our industry is changing. So I want to spend a minute like elaborating on that. Where did that come from? What did you mean by that? And what does it mean for the industry?
Yeah. So like this comes from a little bit of my marketing background, but also, I've been in church life for a long time, and so it comes from that. And then also, just what I was able to do, in my role, but also with the leadership team at the group that I was at. It's really like this inward focus of going, okay, roll back, right? Roll back, okay. break it down even further, right? As a person, right? Like you as a healthy person can have healthy relationships, but unhealthy people create unhealthy relationships, which is why like I'm an advocate for therapy. I'm an advocate for, personal health, whether it be, working out or eating right or waking up a little earlier or reading or meditating or, like all of that type of stuff. I'm such an advocate for, because I know that healthy people have healthy relationships and unhealthy people create unhealthy, codependent, like tenuous relationships. And so if you take that to the dealership or the business or the organization, whatever it may be, like an unhealthy corporation or entity or business or team creates unhealthy relationships. And so what I believe about our industry is, for a long time, it's been an industry of unhealth, right? Not from a profitability perspective, for sure, right? Not from a growth perspective. Obviously, the industry has grown, right? It doesn't mean that unhealthy people don't grow or be successful. It means that those unhealthy people create unhealthy relationships. And what we've done to the consumer base is created an unhealthy relationship. And all you have to do is get on the Wall Street Journal for about 4.5 minutes, and you know that that's the case, right? Whether you believe it or not, like the perception is the reality for our industry. And so like the root there, if from the long way around, right? But the illustration holds, the root there is that if we focus on our people, focus on the culture within our organizations, and what really then, like, culture becomes brand, right? Who you are is what like people see of you, and that is the brand.
Culture becomes brand. I'm keeping that one. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. And so now, like, the brand of franchise retail is dependent on a refreshed culture in our industry. And I'm not the first one to say this, right? There are many people. I
hope people wrote that down. Culture becomes brand. That is totally on point, and that is exactly right, because that's we made a goal. Chris Hoke was my business partner here at VINCUE. Him and I made a goal at the beginning of the year when we did our team meeting, all hands meeting, and said the number one goal for this year is happiness. And what does that mean to us, right? It's like telling your kids, just be good. Like, you have to define what being good is before they understand what good means. And so we define what it means to be happy. And happy is not just our team members, but it's our clients. It's the expectations that we have for each other. It's the trust that we have for each other. As you know this, as you scale any business, you have to be able to trust each other so that you're not stepping on each other's feet. And that equals happiness. And so I see that from a car business perspective, because I'll tell you what, like, when you tell me these things, I hear it as you're telling me, Danny, to run my business this way at Country Hill Motors. So as we keep going, just know I think you're talking to me, and I think that's super important.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and I think like take that, like tease that out a little bit, especially for a dealership, right? And like Contagious is all about marketing and internal marketing teams and that type of thing. But if you tease that out, a lot of people are like, well, what's my USP? What's my unique selling proposition? And most people are like, well, we give free car washes. And it's like, no, that's like a freebie. That's a giveaway, right? Your unique selling proposition is that you have 3 people that are uniquely integrated into your community because they volunteer at the local little league, right? And so they're uniquely equipped to handle every relationship with a car buyer that may need a new car that is entrenched in the little league area of our community, right?
Yep.
That's unique. Nobody else can do that.
That's very unique.
Right? And so what's unique about your business, right? Country Hill Motors or VINCUE. We do buying centers. Great. There's like 50 people that are trying to do that right now.
Exactly. Well, there's a few more.
Okay. Maybe like maybe 100, right? Every company's like,
country,
oh,
yes.
we do. We you're like TM, right? Right. We put the TM on it, right? But yeah, what's unique about that? And typically what it comes down to is your people. And so if your people aren't exhibiting a culture and a community and a feeling that then can become your brand, that becomes the unique thing about what your organization does, right? Then you're just trying to do whatever Carvana does, right? Or
people
whatever
become
X company does.
People become culture, and culture becomes brand. That's I wrote it down.
Man, I should remember that. I feel like that was good.
It is good. It is good. Okay, so I'm going to reset. We have some friends in the room. So Emily, hello, Eric, Jill, Scott, TJ, Wendy. If you guys have any questions, please put them in. And then anybody on Facebook, ask questions for either Kyle or I. And we're talking about how to get real in the car business, because it is changing, and you want to continue to be relevant. And I agree. I think this is a perfect place for us to start the conversation, which is around people. So we both agree that the car business is changing. Yes. You think it's?
Oh, it definitely
you think
is.
it's? And do you what do you think are the influences affecting? I mean, we can obviously spitball and say that it's the internet, it's digital retailing, it's the frictionless environment, it's all these different things. But what do you think is at the core of the evolution? Is it a need from people, or is it technology that's pushing it?
That's an interesting question. Probably a little bit of both. I think also just consumer expectation, and not consumer expectation in the way it's like, oh, well, Carvana came out, so now everybody has to do it, right? Like that. It's like the fact that, I mean, I was explaining this to someone last week, right? If you wanted to get Burger King brought to your door in 1999, you had to have a personal hire that brought you Burger King. Now you probably wouldn't, if you had that much money, you didn't want Burger King brought to your door. But now
don't judge me.
But now it's like everybody gets Burger King brought to their door, right? And so we just have to meet consumers where they're at. And
exactly
I think,
right.
And I think so that causes us to go, okay, so if we have to meet consumers that we're at, we have to think about the way that we manage people differently. We have to think about the way we manage technology differently. We have to think about the way we manage brand differently, right? So I think that that's really the challenge that's happening. And I don't think we are alone in that as an industry. I was talking to a real estate agent a couple of weeks ago that they're on the same boat, right? They're in the same type of feel. It's like consumers are just demanding more of us now, right? Like they just ask different questions. And I think that that's really good. That's healthy. And if we can get ahead of some of those things, then that's even better. I will say from a technology perspective, when you see some of the things that are happening outside of our industry, or things with major market providers like major ad platforms or, Google and their algorithms that are about 8 years ahead of a lot of what the industry has access to right now. It's basically like adapt or go home kind of thing. If you don't Like, if you don't get core web vitals right in the next year, there's no shot for your website to continue to rank, right? There's just no shot unless you're like direct name branded search, right?
Isn't that funny?
That's one of those
that plays
things.
into customer service. That plays into
right.
like customer service is changing. I think you said that, right? And who would have thought that algorithms now play into customer service,
yes,
right?
They do. Yeah, well, because I mean, Google knows, right? The majority of searches end in no clicks, right? Because they got all the information they needed from the snippet on Google, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that's a customer experience piece. We have to live into that, right? So that's just one element. I mean, you can paint that across so much of our industry, but that's just a singular point, right? Or for instance, you know, I see a lot of dealerships like leaning it. They're like, we're going to do social. We're going to get social media right, you know? And the reality is that they're still posting, you know, pictures of cars that it's like, we just got this one in, boss. It's like nobody is waiting by their phone. Like, wonder what Jerry Maguire Motors got today. Right.
Right.
And so that's demanding something additional of us. That's demanding, like we had a conversation in Clubhouse today where it was like, it's demanding that you have someone that understands content creation, understands technology in your dealership.
That was my next question. That was literally my next question. If talk to me as Country Hill Motors for a second. Yeah. If I had a traditional org chart, sales manager, general manager, let's say I had an inventory person and salespeople. That's my business, and I'm selling, call it 50 cars a month. Who are the next 2 to 3 hires that I need to consider?
Probably either like one of, and what's interesting is like you're not going to an entry level position to find someone. Like you have to bring on even at minimum some level of CIO, CTO, CMO, or COO, right? And depending on what the skill sets are in the upper management, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to need one of those. Like, you don't have to call them a C-suite executive, right? You don't have to give them, but you have to have someone that fills the gaps for like marketing, information, technology, or operations that most likely isn't someone that has like come up through dealership ranks. Could be, right? You could have that person swimming in there, but someone that's going to challenge you as an organization in a new and fresh way, right? To connect dots, to connect people to processes, or technology to processes, or information to technology, right? I mean, you know, especially those like small to mid-sized groups, you like the ROI on a purchase of your store or group is its data in the future.
It is. You're absolutely right.
It's not its revenue.
Yep.
So it's
marketing
like,
is biz dev.
Yes, exactly. Marketing and the data that you have, right? And the cleanliness of that data and all of that that's what you have to be going after, right? And here's what's scary is every single time, 100% of the time that I talk to someone about this, they say this exact phrase. I've never had this not come up. The minute I say that, they say, I'm not sure if we're ready to add that expense. Right?
You know what I hear? I'm not sure that we're ready to take on that opportunity for that profit, because I see that as a direct line to profit. We hired, we were lucky enough to hire a gentleman named Dante at Country Hill Motors about 3 years ago now, and he was the program director for a local news station. And so his role was to create and manage content at a pretty high level, right? And we needed somebody that had the ability to understand how to traffic that content, how to be creative, but also understood how to run a business, right? I will tell you, we have solved way more problems than I ever imagined and created so many more opportunities as a business from this one position. I started with the roles and responsibilities job description for him. Right. And it was so small relative to what he's capable of doing, and I'm so proud of the person that he's becoming and everything he's doing for the business. But I see this type of person in mid to large franchises, but I don't encounter this person in small to medium car dealerships very often.
Yep.
And what I'm starting to feel like is it is a tipping point. There's a differentiator there. When you start growing into that space, you've got to do exactly what you said. You have to have somebody in charge of biz dev and marketing and turn that into a department.
Yep, absolutely. And so the other piece of that is like, what's the ROI of someone paying attention to that part of the business every single day, right? At a high level,
Yep.
right? Because, you know, if you're a general manager or dealer principal or GSM, right? You're head down, right? And a lot of times, actually, what's interesting is about that person or those people is they start to become business advisors for you, right? I say that they have to have a seat.
Totally.
You just said it. Like operationally, what you've been able to accomplish from hiring someone that's in charge of content and marketing, right? Because like a lot of times their eyes are just like a little bit more focused up, right? Maybe a little bit more over the horizon than where you're at. You're like, we got to sell cars today, right?
Yep.
And they give you that capacity to just lift your eyes just a little bit. And maybe they're looking at the new technology or they're paying attention to the podcast that just dropped by Gary Vee that says you got to drop this many pieces of content. Like their eyes are just a little bit further up a lot of times. And mainly because they don't have to be, they're not driven by like, I've got to sell a car today, right? And so their eyes just are naturally just lifted just a little bit. And so having that person or people. And so what I would say is like what you do is you bring in where you can fill the gap, right? And you can't have a Swiss Army knife all the time, right? It sounds like you found one, right? But you bring in that, and then maybe you bring in consultants or advisors or fractionals to do some of those type of like other elements, right? Or agencies, whatever. And then as you build and as you grow, you start to build more of that out in-house, whether it be a marketing team or an IT team or an operational team. Shoot, same conversation in Clubhouse. It's like, well, not everybody can write processes. Well, yeah,
right.
But if you don't write processes and you're trying to buy 2 dealerships, then how are you going to run those when you're trying to run it with this one just by the word of mouth? Right.
Well, I think many of us are programmed to think ROI, like instant ROI. It's like how many deals is that person going to add to the board, or how much money is that person going to save, and it's a different set of KPIs when you hire a person like that, right? So what are those KPIs in your mind when you were at Nelson Automotive Group? How were you graded?
Yeah, I mean, first, let me just say, if they're not graded by business outcomes, right? More sales, more CPROs, higher retention, right? All of that type of stuff, then, I mean, everybody should be managed and driven to that. But I definitely think that there are KPIs that are just like, they're more task driven than they are like check on the board driven, right? Like the value of impressions, the value of like getting something done is a lot higher. The only role typically in the dealership or dealer group that we don't that we manage on tasks and not ROI has been accounting, right? And marketing can actually be a lot closer to that than it can be, with a solid marketing strategy and with a solid like the strategy around, how we go to market and what our brand is. This can be the case that as long as it's happening at a quality level, like the reality is that the growth over time is like it's a curve, right? And what's scary is you don't hit that curve for a little while, right? Maybe you can have some minor impacts here and there when new technology or new sources or new things like that come into play, but the growth over time is the real trajectory. So business outcomes, yes. Tasks, probably just the same, right? It's like we need 15 videos out this week. Yeah. Because I know that if 15 videos hit, that over time, every single week that we've got that much content in the world, that my SEO, the SEO grows, and it's like all these different metrics. So I've honestly struggled to put like here's the 5 things and here's the 5 KPIs you need to put on every marketer or every IT person. And I just don't think that that's practical or reality. But growth in business outcomes and dedication to the job role and the task are almost just as important, right? It's like, what's,
because
a lot of people have business coaches or personal coaches. What's the ROI of a business coach or a personal coach? It's like, over a long period of time, I gained valuable resources that help me grow on a trajectory that it's not down, right? And that's a reality of that team.
Dropping all sorts of bombs here, Kyle. Writing that one down, because that's where you started, right? You develop the person develops the team develops the business, and the business has an impact on the community, and that side effect is culture.
Think about it. If everything in your business, if everything in your business was only 1% better tomorrow than it was today, and that repeated itself 365 days a year, if every aspect of your business, right, whether it be the people, the growth, like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's some results. I think about that all the time. I'm like, am I 1% better than I was yesterday? Huh, maybe not. Maybe I need to read a little bit more today, right?
So you've got a perspective on the industry. What I walk into the dealership every day, and I know the tasks that I have. I know what I'm managing. Sometimes, though, I don't know what I'm supposed to be, quote unquote, protecting, right? Lately, I agree 100% with you that data is what I'm protecting in the car business, because our inventory is our data, right? Because it goes out into the world, and I've got to be able to protect that. And then obviously I've got to be able to protect my team and my people. What do you think dealers need to be aware of looking out over the next few months or year, and paying close attention to within their own business to protect?
Yeah, I think data is everything. And whether that be inventory data or people data, or whatever you want to call it. But I think that is like really understanding that and cleansing that and owning it, right, is going to be paramount. And a lot of people know, like, they look over their agreements for Reynolds or, whatever DMS they're on, and they're like, oh, do we own our data? And until you actually own the data, like create places where you own the data, whether it be your customer data, your inventory, or your reporting data, in some way, then like you can't execute on it. And the cleanliness of that is your capacity to execute, especially in a cookieless future, especially when personalization is the need for personalization in marketing, in customer retention is at an all-time high, right? I was working with a dealer group, and over 30% of their records had business names as their first name, but they were not registered as a business, which means that marketing emails, like say you're paying per email or per email impression, marketing emails were going out to those people because they weren't registered as a business, right? Think about the loss of dollars for 25 store auto group that just put a marketing blast out, right? Yep. I mean, it's like, that's things we're not thinking about, right? A lot of times. And
how do you solve that for a dealership? How do you tell them, okay, you have to own your data? Well, they say, well, I own my data. It's in my CRM or it's in my DMS, right? It's in there. So it's mine. Like in there, I think even partially in my mind, I mean, I certainly understand the difference, but there is a line in the sand. So what do you do to own your data?
Yep. Yeah.
So you buy a server, you put a server in your closet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can cloud-base a lot of that solutions, right? I'm of the opinion that anyone that's owning their own data right now should have some level of cloud-based server function that actually aggregates all of your data. I'm actually working on a project right now that can accomplish that and hand that off to the dealer to own the data in a repository, both for inventory and dealer data. But that more to be announced on that soon.
That's incredible.
But yeah, so I think that's especially for this. It maybe not be accessible for the single, 2, 3, 4 rooftop groups, unless they're really bigger stores or something like that. But yeah, that's the idea. So the ability to extract that data and clean it over time, and then push that data back into the system of your choice, right? I mean, we've all heard the horror stories of a buy sell where the data doesn't transition because they
Yes.
couldn't come to an agreement with the DMS, or you decide to switch CRMs, and like the loss of data is so large that even if you want to switch, you don't, because of fear of loss of data, right? And so if you own that in a cloud-based solution where everything is available via API, right? Then all of a sudden you want to switch CRMs. It's like, oh yeah, it's all over here. I don't need a CRM export. Actually, you just hook up to this API, boom, give you a key, and we're off to the races, right? But that also demands a lot from DMS companies, CRM companies that still do not have push-pull APIs, right? So yeah, I think that's going to be a heavy demand over the next 18 to 24 months on industry companies. Like, if you are not building an API to your data right now and you're an industry company, then you will be at a loss in 18 months, right? You may not know where that data has to go, why it has to go anywhere, or what it has to do, or who it has to get to. But if you do not have API endpoints at which to access the data that the dealer should own, or that you have the ability to push out, then you're doing it wrong. And it doesn't mean that your APIs have to be free. It just means there has to be like clear endpoints, solid access, speed to server, and the ability to access it with quality documentation, right? And then what happens is you get the ability to integrate and pick and choose, and then like I used to be a fan of like everything has to be under one roof, right? That's just not, it's not practical, right? Even Cox can't figure it out, right? They bought like all these 20 companies, but none of them had APIs. So they had to build all these custom integrations, and now nothing's still under one roof, right? So I used to be this fan of like, someone needs to build a product that does everything for the dealership, right? It's not possible. I mean, that you're building software right now. Like, if you were to try and solve 100% of the software solutions for a dealership, so it's a single login, like, I mean, you'd have to raise a stupid round of funding, right? I mean, and you wouldn't have the dev or energy resources to get that done. But if you're like, oh, dealer is going to pick this, this, and this, and I need all the data endpoints to agree, and the data aggregator is below that, which is the dealer owned, then all of a sudden they push and pull back and forth. Everything's always clean. Everything's always reconciled. Even silly stuff like do not call registries, right? Someone's like, do not call over here, but we called them over here, because we didn't know. Right. So that's my encouragement to industry partners. Like, build your APIs right now. Sorry, that was a rant, but there you
go. No, I'll tell you what, that's a call to action. I have not heard. That those are conversations that aren't being had enough. But we look at online retailers that are making a lot of noise and disrupting, yes, and somehow penetrating markets where their car doesn't even exist, and thinking somebody should do something about that. Well, you just answered it.
Yes,
is you got to get educated, and that's the other piece of it, right? We talked about people. Put somebody in that position to get educated. Put somebody in that position of power in your dealership to learn what it means to exist in the next 5 years.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I've been having these conversations a lot recently. That it's essentially like, look at your business in 5 years and dream state it, right? Whatever your business is, whether it's a dealership or industry partner, and dream state it, right? And then reverse engineer to that dream state, right? You're going to have to be flexible along the way because things are going to change, but you have to reverse engineer to that, right? I'm working with a client right now that it's like, we want our dealership processes to look like this by X time, right? Well, we can't wake up a month from that X time and all of a sudden do all of the things, right? So what we're doing is we're actually reverse engineering a timeline to get there, where we can make minor changes right now to where everybody isn't shocked to make the change like all at one time, because it's a big shift, right? So what we're doing is minor changes right now that lead to a large change, right? So, you might not be at the place as a dealership to build, custom APIs in the data warehouse, right? But what you may be at the capacity to do is start to have someone chip away at data cleanliness in your DMS, right? To where, maybe we are just reconciling bad emails or no phone numbers or things like that. And we're pulling, every month a little bit of data out and then cleaning it up, right? And just chunking away at data cleanliness so that when you get to the point where you have the capacity to do that, that it's a lot easier, switch to turn on.
You are spot on, my friend. You are absolutely spot on. So I've got some rapid fire questions for you. These are 4, and I know you always.
Not great with rapid fire. I like to talk.
I do. No. It doesn't mean you have to be fast. It just means that I've got 4 in a row. This is for you, Kyle Mountsier. Okay.
Yes.
This is meant to say in your heart. What has you most excited about automotive retail right
now? I think the energy around collaboration is really, really strong. I feel like, I'm seeing a lot of these 3 dealers want this vendor, and this vendor all have to get together to help these 3 dealers or dealer groups do that thing. And so we're actually going to start talking, right? which is not always been the case. And I think that's
it's new.
That's going to be, well, I mean, you're doing it with Team VINCUE. It's like, hey, we're going to bring like some people in and we're all going to just, we might do some similar things, but if we challenge each other and all of a sudden, like we're working together to do something, then maybe there's something on the other side that comes together really, really well. So I think that's going to be, I'm excited to see what some of the announcements are at NADA, right? From like a partnership perspective, like who partnered with who to do something really cool? What dealership maybe prompted these 3 vendors to get together to tie some knots up, to enhance the customer experience, instead of like, we chose this one thing to do this deal and we did it only, and we didn't include anyone else. Right. And I think that's where, like, when I talk about the APIs or like data efficiency or, customer experience, that's really going to be, the thing that I think really we can champion in the industry this year, is like everybody came together to do something. Right. And that's our big thing with the SOTU is Automotive State of the Union is saying like, hey, when dealers and industry partners band together, no crisis can win. So whether that crisis be, barbarians at the gate of the big box retailers, or, EV, or COVID, or chip shortages, whatever it is, like there's a collaboration that all of a sudden we've got more people talking, more people thinking up new, fresh ideas. And all of a sudden we're not Blockbuster. We're like the new kids on the block. Right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. That holla 1998.
So this is a big teaching moment for me. Like I learned this, right? It's when I gave up the scarcity mindset, and I heard a quote that I really liked, which was, "You can't compete with me because I want you to win too."
Oof.
When I adopted those 2 things, is it so good, right? When I adopted those things, like there's just enough. And in whatever cool idea you come out with that's revolutionary and amazing and all these things, those superlatives can live on the internet. But what happens like on the ground, which we've talked about as our ground, like who are you helping? How are you giving more than you take? Like what are you doing to change and enhance people to do the thing that you said to do, which is to change culture? That's what's exciting. And so you're exactly right. That's why we created Team VINCUE, and we're excited for continuing bringing on new partnerships. And I don't care if we cross swords, we make each other better. I mean, that's
Yes.
why, that's exactly why, I love this business. So, sorry, this was about you, not about me. So let's, second
No,
question.
it's dead on.
What do you love most about working with a dealer?
Oh man. I just get jazzed when the light bulb kind of goes off and I just see dealers, they take action like nobody else, right? It's like when something that's what I love about dealers. They're like when something hits, they're like, change it, go, blah, blah. They are pointing fingers, like go here, we're doing that, and then we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like all of a sudden they're just boom, their ability to execute on the dime. And so I love just kind of like asking enough questions for someone to go, oh my goodness, that is yes, let's go. I also love what I really love is I get to the way that our relationships with dealers work is we get to hear a lot of the really cool stories that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So just like the real people stories of what's going on in the store, instead of just like the business outcome wins and celebrating those and coming alongside and just being integrated with people. That's that that's what gets me up every day, right? Is it's
Yeah.
like celebrating wins, like, oh, we did this cool thing, or this person on my team did this, right? um I we have a dealer that we work with that they did a video of their parts pull person, right? And this person was like the most passionate person about their job. And I would have never seen that video had I not been a part of that dealership. And it was like they were connecting, pulling parts to the customer experience. And I was like, I leaned in so far. I was like, oh my goodness, this is what our industry is all about, not overlooking that person. And so I get excited about hearing the people stories within our industry because they are plentiful.
Yes, they are, and they're evolving because the problems we solve are evolving. Um,
Yeah.
and in that, I think there's going to be a lot of really cool opportunities for all of us to grow. And as long as we take that mindset, man, so many cool things.
Yep.
So as we grow, what should a dealer be doing? And again, I think I hear you talking to me to prepare for the future. You talked about data. I know that's really really important. What do you think they should be doing in the store from maybe a people perspective, inventory perspective, more on the ground to prepare for the future, or what they should maybe even be thinking about?
Yeah, for me, I would be thinking about how do I get more people learning how to do more things, like less specialized, right? Um, to where like I can have cross training, things picking up where like the if a service advisor would all of a sudden be able to fill in to sell a car, or a salesperson could fill in to write service, right? That for me is ultimate goal. Um, because I mean, like this is a lot smaller example, right? But like at some point, if you work at McDonald's, you can flip fries, run the register, sweep the floors, put out napkins, and change the sign, right? And not that everybody in the dealership has to be able to do that, but what I think that does is one, it helps you out when there are like people shortages, right? If for some reason you're running into an issue with people shortages. Um, Two, it enhances the customer experience because if I'm a salesperson and I know what the service engagement is like, or if I'm an accounting person and I know what the sales engagement is like, that cross training actually enhances the total guest experience across the dealership, right? And what happens is like all of their eyes start to lift. So when a salesperson or a BDC agent is like, you have the confidence in knowing that when they're trusted at the organization level and they're able to see something in another arena, and because they have like the background of being in that at some point or understanding the job capacity, and it's not just a dig but it's an insight that can help you grow your business, then you trust them enough to actually listen to that insight, right? Um, and I think that type of breaking down the barriers between the organization is really, really strong. I got the chance to kind of do this on a really small scale, not exactly as I wanted to, but for a while there was running a BDC, for a 2-store BDC. And, I made an intention that over a 3-month period, every single person had to shadow every department, including detail, for a minimum of a half a day. And so we had 5 people. It took us, all of 3 months to get them shadowed. They shadowed accounting, they shadowed service, they shadowed a technician, a detail person, a salesperson. And like, I was on the operational side of the business at the executive level. And what that gave me was we came to meetings as a BDC, and they were like, now I knew when they said, hey, I was getting this call, but this wasn't happening. What if blank, right? I knew that they had the capacity to recommend that. And then we could go back and retool based on and instead of just being like, oh, I just can't stand when they never answer phones. Right.
Yeah.
It was a different level of efficiency. So I think if we can do more of that, you lessen the impact of people shortages and enhance the impact of innovation. Hope that helps.
Wow. I hope people are taking notes, because this is spot on. And what's so interesting is, like, in other conversations that I get into, they're always so focused on results, and our conversation has been focused on the person, on empowering the person. And I mean, that's where you're speaking from. So I've been taking this note that I'm going to share with you at the very end, and it's who I think you are. By the way, this is I'm kind of listening to your soul as you're talking to me, and I'm taking some notes. So I'm going to come back to that. I've got one more question for you, but before I do, you keep saying when their eyes go up. What do you mean by that? You say their eyes lift. Tell me what that means.
Yeah. So like, most people are kind of head down into their day or what
Yeah.
their specific job role is. Right.
Yeah.
So for instance, I was having, a conversation with a general manager last week of a store. And it was essentially like, hey, what's going on in the store? How are things going? And it was like everything. It was like detailed. Boom, 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 boom. These are the data points. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. Right. And then I was like, oh, did you see that, that this OEM is doing this? It was a thing about an OEM, that was, not directly related, but was pretty important from an industry perspective. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just hadn't heard about it. And not that you have to know everything about anything, right? But when your eyes are lifted just a little bit, it means you're kind of looking over the horizon, or your eyes are up to the things that may not be directly about today's business or today's task. But actually what happens is when you look toward those things, they actually start to inform back into today's task, right? So 20 groups were like the early representation of this, right? Oh, we've got this group that's not in my city, that's not at my store, that are doing different things. And I've got a place to ping that back and forth, right? And then Clubhouse, for some parts of the industry was like a little bit more of
Yep.
that. And then, sometimes LinkedIn or Facebook gives you a little bit more of that. But I think, like, if you can really, really say, I'm gonna focus intention at living with one foot in the future and one foot in today, with my eyes just slightly up, then you're not so dedicated to the here and now that you can't let that 5-year plan inform what is happening today, right? Because if you're only making business decisions based on what's happening today, you're actually making business decisions based on what happened yesterday. And so you have to make business decisions on both what's going to happen, what is happening, and what did happen. And so that's what I mean when you have your eyes up. And interestingly enough, it's really funny. Like, a lot of the people in your organization probably have their eyes up a lot more than you do. Especially if you're a leader in your organization, right? Because maybe they are on social, or maybe they are like watching the news, or, they actually catch the news show on Netflix, right? Or whatever it may be. And sometimes we just get so caught in our day-to-day, especially in a business that is turned by the month so hard, right?
Yes.
That we just can't have our eyes up to something that's happening outside and around us, right? So That's what I mean by having your eyes just
what a
slightly
life
turned up.
lesson. What a life lesson in that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Here's my last question, then I'm going to share my note with you. So what's the biggest challenge do you think that dealers are facing? Is it something you've mentioned, or is it something we haven't talked about?
Oh man, there's a lot right now. I mean, I'm facing it. I'm facing challenges for sure, but I think probably is bloat or the the fatness that we're getting off of the land right now, right? That we're not preparing for the drought, right? There are savvy dealers. Don't get me wrong. This is not everybody. That there are savvy dealers that are preparing for the drought. They are like, I don't know when the drought's going to happen. It could be 5 months, 5 years, 15 years. I don't care. Like we could be in a bullish market for 15 years and just be crushing it, right? But if year 16, the drought happens and you've spent 15 years only eating 100% of the fat of the land and not reserving back, whatever it may be, right? A new process, a new engagement, maybe profits, even just like banking them, right? Whatever it may be, if you're only living off of the fat of the land right now, which is real fat right now. I mean, dealers are, I don't care if you're in retail and you have inventory, you're doing all right. It doesn't matter what retail industry you're in right now, right? And so if you're living off of 100% of like what is coming into your business and you're not reserving back, and that includes, creating new things, right? Writing new processes, engaging in new technologies, all that type of stuff. And you're just like, hey, feels good. Water's good, right? That's a dangerous place to be in for me.
I'm going to share my note with you.
All right. I'm ready.
So
I'm nervous, but I'm ready.
As you've been talking, right? It's like, why do I like this guy? That's what I've been thinking. I've been like, why do I like Kyle? Because I met you.
Appreciate it.
It's been now a little over a year, I think. Probably close, maybe even a year and a half.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I was like, okay, trying to understand, because I kind of warm up like a cat, even though I'm allergic to cats, FYI. But it takes me a minute. I like you more now. We just lost some people, I'm sure.
Yeah, but, right. Everybody just rolled off.
But as we get to spend more time together, here's how here are the things that came up for me. You're wildly curious. You are a very curious person, and I think that serves you really, really well. And that is a gift. So hold on to that. Your heart keeps showing up. Kyle, you have a huge heart. When we were in Las Vegas, you were the one that dragged me out at 5 a.m. to go for that silly run that I would have never done had you not peer pressured me. And then we got back and I'm like dying, and you're like, I'll be right back. And then you went and did another freaking half mile or whatever the heck you did around the hotel. And you like bring people together. And the last thing that I wrote down is you're intentional. And meaning you, like, because you're curious, because you have a huge heart, you choose to use that for good. And I think that's rare. I think there are people that I encounter that do things to get something back, and you share it because I can tell you wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't have risked going out and creating the things that you're doing if you didn't. Vision pulls, pain pushes, and so you chose to follow your vision. I think that's really cool. All that boils down to I trust you, and that's something I don't get to say to many people. So I'm really glad that we got to spend this time together. So that is really who Kyle is to me.
It means a lot.
Absolutely.
That means a lot. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. So check that out, man. That's been our Accelerate. So last question. Deal. I lied. If somebody learned something, but they got more curiosity and they're like, okay, I gotta talk to this guy. How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I just got the shortest email I've ever had in my life because my name is long and all of my emails have been long after the @. And so you can hit me at kyle@asotu.com. Or find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Kyle Mountsier in the world. You can also Google me. I'm that guy that I can't hide anything. So Kyle Mountsier. You can Google it. LinkedIn comes up and message me or anything like that. I love to have more conversations. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Kyle, I'm going to see you and check this out. I've been holding this Las Vegas in less than 4 weeks. So I'll see you there.
I'm excited. We'll see you there.
All right, buddy. Have a good day.